Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning if you're on the other side of the world. Thanks for joining today's webinar, which is going to be with my very special guest, Zoe Noble, in a second. Before we get to that, just a couple of things. If you are in our webinar room, welcome to you there. If you want to ask a question, excuse me, you will find a Q&A panel just up at the top. So if you put your question in there, that just makes it a bit easy for myself to see, so we can divide it up from the chat. But do feel free to talk amongst yourselves as well. If you want to hide that window, you can do so. Just pop that little down arrow, and then that will give you a bit more space on screen, especially if you want to go full screen as well. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, hello to you guys over there. Again, we can see all the comments coming through on YouTube. So once again, put your comments in there. And to make sure that you always know when we're going to go online, if you are on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button as well. And that way you won't miss any content in the future. So I think that's all our housekeeping stuff to do. So let's go and find Zoe. Hey Zoe, how's it going?
Hey David, it's going well, thank you.
Good stuff, good stuff. Thanks for joining us today. For those people who don't know who you are, which I'm sure is not very many, just give us the 30-second rundown on who you are and what you do.
Okay, so my name is Zoe Noble. I am a beauty and still life photographer. I'm British, but I'm based in Berlin, and I also work as an educator and a retoucher when I'm not shooting. So I've been taking over the Capture One Instagram for the last 24 hours, which has been super fun. So yeah, if anyone has been following along, lovely to see you again.
Fantastic, good stuff. All right, so what we're going to do today is look at let's just actually bring up the picture so it makes more sense, is look at a workflow for product photography in Capture One. Now this ties quite nicely with your new education site, which we're going to talk about a bit later on and give people some information about that, which is focusing on product photography, correct? Oh, Zoe, we just lost your screen share, I think. Is your
okay.
That's not your fault, that's my fault, I think. 1 second. Oh, there we go. It's back.
You got me?
Yeah, I've got you, and then I've just lost your face. So let's bring your face back. Hang on, that was just a weird little blip. There we go. So hopefully that doesn't happen again, but we can fix it if it does. Yeah, so we're going to go through product photography workflow, as I said, with this shot here. And then, of course, if you have any questions, please don't be shy and shout them out as we go through. So what have we got on screen, Zoe?
So this is a shot from my course, and
Okay.
you know, this for products I'm always kind of looking at. It's lots of detail work. So Capture One is great because I can pull out a lot more detail from the raw file, and I can also manipulate the colors really easily. So I want to show you that you can use the color tools to really go much further than you think. And although this was shot with a green gel and it's called emerald, so I'm always, shooting it correctly in camera, so the color fits the name of the product. But for you guys, I'm going to try and change the color to a completely different color, and just show you how I would approach this kind of a shot.
Perfect. And to preempt the question, because I'm sure it's going to come, this is one of your shots, I assume.
Yes, it is. Yes, exactly.
And shot in an aquarium or a small water tank?
A small water tank, exactly. So using, just a very small amount of water in the base, and, manipulating the water with a hairdryer, and just, creating some really interesting shapes. And I love shooting with water because you never know what you're going to get. A lot of trial and error, and it's sometimes it fails miserably, and sometimes it's beautiful, and that's what I love, not knowing really, but yeah.
Excellent. So this is the shot without any adjustments, so I'm guessing.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the shot that I kind of will take it to.
Okay.
So yeah, and I'm going to be working with layers, cleaning, doing first the kind of the base work on the correcting exposure, bringing out the details, and then I start looking at things like color, correcting the color, which is always important for product photography, making sure everything is balanced, and basically that's a lot of the product work is a lot more about the correcting and balancing colors rather than adding extreme color grades. It's a lot more about just letting the product shine, and obviously for products, we want it to look accurate. So yes, this is a different take on it, but just so you can see what's possible, I want to take you there.
And before you start editing, last question before that, Libby was asking, how is it lit?
Well, so this one is lit. Well, this is in the course, so should I be giving away?
Yeah.
These are juicy gems. But yeah, it's what I'll say is that this course is all about using one light.
Okay.
So I'm sure you can guess really, but it's one light and using reflectors to manipulate the light and keeping it simple. So that's what this course is all about, showing you that you don't need lots of equipment, you don't need huge spaces, and it's just understanding how to work with that one light and manipulating the one light, and keeping it simple for you so you can focus on the concepts rather than I've got to balance 5 different lights. And I remember starting out in product photography, you can feel very overwhelmed.
Yes.
So I want to simplify the process and just make it easier for you to focus on what truly matters, which is more the concept and coming up with an interesting image.
Nice, excellent. Right, so let's take it away. First step.
Okay. So first, I'm always kind of working down the panels in Capture One. So I'm looking at the exposure and I want to bring out the details. So for products, I know I can push the contrast a lot more than if this was a shot with a person in. So I'm going to increase my contrast just to make it pop a little bit more. And I have different ways I can add contrast. I can either use the slider or I can use my curves, which both are fine. So I can do either or here, but I'm gonna leave that contrast around there. The exposure looks pretty good. I'm just gonna double check with the high dynamic range tool to make sure that the details are being pulled out. So I'll always lift the shadows just to get more detail, because I know if I want to make this moodier, more contrast, that I can do that easily, but I want to get as much detail and information out of the photo. So I'm lifting my shadows, and then maybe I'm just going to bring down the black. So this is the really darkest parts of the image. So, these kind of darker areas around here, and this is going to just help the contrast even more. Contrast is about those brighter areas against those darker areas. So if we start to make the brights brighter and the darks darker, we are increasing the contrast. And I'm going to double check with the highlight just to make sure this label, it's not losing any detail. I can always go to my exposure warning button here, and I can see the very red areas are telling me I've lost information in there. And for things like products with glass, it's okay in certain areas. If I'm losing details on these tiny little spots where the light has just picked up in the glass, that's okay. What I'm really looking for is the label. Is the label too blown out? And I'm not losing any information there, but I'm just going to bring this down just slightly. So I'm bringing down the highlight slider and just the whites, because again, I will probably make it pop even more at the end, but I just want to kind of flatten everything down on the highlights to ensure that it is nice and recovered. So I'll turn off that exposure warning tool now. And then I can decide if I want to add some clarity. I always gentle with the clarity. Again, products, I can push it a bit more, but I'm just going to raise it up a little bit. It's already pretty sharp, so I don't need to go too far here. So that's the kind of the base, exposure detail work that I'm doing on product photos. And then, after this, I'm going to look at things like the color. So are there any questions, David, about this kind of area, or am I good to go?
No, I think you're good to go at the moment. There was a question from Mark who was asking which lens you were using.
So this one, yeah, it's just down here at the bottom, 100mm. This was the Canon f2.8 macro 100mm, which is great for these smaller products. So you can get all of the detail, really get, close to the logo and everything. So I love that lens. Any macro lens for these kinds of smaller products is great. So yeah.
Cool. And was it constant lighting or flash?
This was constant lighting.
Okay.
So in the course, I'm going through what shots with constant lights, some with strobe lights, because what I want to show people as well, that you can actually achieve a lot of this. You can achieve looks with whatever light you have. You can achieve this look with sunlight if you have it, and
If you're lucky, if you don't
if you
live where we live.
that's true. Today, there's no sunlight.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why, I love studio lights, because you have the control. And if you live somewhere with sunlight, you are blessed, and you have the ability to actually, do a lot with that. But if you don't get one light, whether it's a constant light or a strobe light, it doesn't really matter. But when I'm doing work like this with trying to pinpoint exactly where that light goes, constant lights really help me, because a strobe light is so powerful. It spills the light everywhere, and it can be harder to see exactly what you're getting. Yes, you have the modeling light, but it's still never going to be as exact as what you see with the constant light. So I do love using constant lights for still work and work where, I just need to see exactly what I'm getting.
Got it. Cool. Okay, let's move on.
Okay, so then first I'm going to just clean the product and remove any, kind of dust marks, hairs, or anything that I can see. I can see a couple of things around here. So I'm always going to work with the layers, because it gives me the most flexibility. I can turn them on and off. I can lower the opacity, and I can just see what my workflow was. If I just start doing everything on the image, it's really hard to actually understand what the process was that I went through. And I can just so much more easily copy things over, delete things. So I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm just going to call this healing. Although actually, I'm just going to see, does the healing tool actually create a new layer, David? I'm trying to think.
If you don't have one, yeah, it's yes and no, really. I guess if you have no layers and you just start using the healing brush, then it will create a healing layer.
Yes.
Personally, I think it's good practice to make one beforehand if you're going to do a lot of other stuff going on in layers, because you're a bit more in control then. But if you're looking at a shot and think, I just need to clean up a few things, then you can safely grab the healing brush and just go for it. But I think in your situation, I would possibly be a bit more paranoid about it, because I might want to make 2 healing layers with different opacity or something like that. So yeah, but
exactly.
it will automatically do it if one doesn't exist.
Right. Awesome. So then I am just going to zoom in a little bit more so I can just see exactly, and I can see all of the bits that I'm like, why didn't you clean that off, Zoe? Why didn't you, why didn't you remove that? But, you've got the power of the healing and the clone tools, but always try and get it right in camera. And, I clean the products before I start shooting. I have, white gloves on, which are, they repel dust. So clean everything before you start, because with product work, even cleaning these dust marks, it's just more time that you waste, really. So, but great for tutorials. So let's use the heal tool.
But it's almost impossible to get it completely clean, isn't it? Having tried myself, yeah. But
I really thought this was clean. So I can see there's a few bits and pieces around. So yeah, it's these small products and dust just clings to everything. So I'm just going to remove this hair. I'm just making sure my brush size is the same size or just a bit bigger than the thing I'm removing, so that it's not trying to heal extra areas, which is, it's going to take more for it to try and work out what's the surrounding area like, and it might not fit as well. So I'm just going to, I hope you can see my it's very small, it's here. So I'm just going to drag it over. That I kind of went a bit wonky, but hey ho. And if I don't want to see the outline of this, I just want to see what was the result like, I can just move my cursor off the screen and just see it did a really great job. So that's perfect. And now I can move on to the other bits. I'm using the space bar to get my pan tool, so I can just move around the image And I'm just going to use my square brackets to increase or decrease and just do a little tap over the dust. So just going to go out. Yeah, that was good. So I can be pretty quick here and just move around the image. And Capture One does a really great job. I mean, you know, it's seamless. So I really, really love this heal tool.
And saves you a job in Photoshop as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And, you know, I always want to try and get as much of the retouching done in Capture One before I go into Photoshop. It saves me more time that way. Obviously, it will depend on what kind of image am I retouching. If it's a client image, sometimes I need to be able to put certain bits of the process at the very end, things like color grading, because a client might just change their mind.
How dare they?
Sadly, it happens sometimes. So you've got to have a flexible workflow, and I will try and leave those things at the end if it's that. But if it's a shoot for my portfolio, I will do 99% of it in Capture One, and you know, I may just need to go into Photoshop for some light, you know, hair retouching or something, but it will save you time, because if you do things like the color work and the color grading in Capture One, and then you take it to Photoshop to say clean the skin intensively or the hair, you will save time, because it's once you see the final image that you're working on, you actually retouch a lot less. When you start with the base as a completely blank canvas, you'll find you retouch more skin, you'll retouch more hair, because you haven't yet got to that end result, which always brings everything together. The color work brings everything together. And if you can do it at the beginning for your own images, then do it.
Awesome.
So I think that's it. And then maybe there's just this drop on here. So this small drop here, I can try and see. Well, let me get this little hair here. I can try and see what it does. Chances are, because this drop is going over this logo, I have a feeling it's not going to do too well. And that's fine. It would be the same in Photoshop. Chances are I'd have to add a new layer, and I'd have to use a clone stamp tool with a very hard brush and paint perfectly over that. So I think I can remove a little bit and get pretty close to it, but I might still end up having to do that final perfection detail in Photoshop. But it's doing a pretty good job. You know, I can get that little white speck.
Unless there was another O on the label that was the exact same size. then you could clone it over.
Yeah, that would be perfect. If it was there, that would be perfect. So, but that's fine for this tutorial, so we can leave that there. And so I'm just gonna skim around quickly. Obviously, I will also try and remember where am I retouching this for? Is it for a you know, a huge billboard, a big poster? Then I could be coming into this level, zooming in and getting all this detail. But if I am only going to be showing this image on Instagram or my website, I know it's only ever going to be viewed maybe at this level, if not smaller, on Instagram. So I will really force myself to not zoom in if I know it's not going to be seen at that closer level, because otherwise you're just wasting time. And we want to be saving ourselves time so we can be shooting more rather than being stuck at the computer more. Yeah. So always bear that in mind as well.
And you could drive yourself crazy retouching at 100% all the time, really.
Yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. And I get lots of people messaging me saying, you know, why is my retouching taking me 6 hours to do one photo? And I'm saying, how you're zoomed in too close. Absolutely, you're zoomed in. And it's like a light bulb moment goes off when you're like, oh, I don't need to go into this level. I don't need to retouch skin at this level because or retouch even this product at this level, because if no one's going to see that, you're just working for no benefit. And especially on, you know, people shots, if you do retouch too much, if you go in too close, you start removing all those little variations that actually add to the image. They all combine for this, to make this believability impact. It feels natural and real with those small imperfections, so to speak. So less is more so much of the time. So actually we'll try and do this area down here. This is just inside of the bottle. Underneath, it's creating this kind of unusual shape. So, I don't know what it's going to do, but let's see, because it could actually pull from, we could pull it from over here to mimic it. So so that's not so bad. So then we can just play around with the position of that to try and get this line pretty even. So I think that's pretty good. So that works as well. And now I'm just kind of zooming out, looking at the whole thing, taking my cursor off the image so I can just see it at this wider level. Is there anything else that is catching my eye? Maybe, sometimes these white highlights, they can catch your eye too much. So, but sometimes it's adding to this effect. We can see here this line. So I can make a decision whether this is too distracting and just, remove it. So let's do that. Let's have a look. So with a steady hand, not very steady, but let's have a look. So, it might be cleaner if I zoom that out. It might just be cleaner without that tiny little thin white line catching my eye. And I can do the same here. Okay, I have to catch these. So let's try this one here. So then I would just kind of look at that and go, that feels less distracting. Same with this white, which is just hitting the label. I don't mind them inside of the bottle, but I think this one is just catching my eye a bit too much. So I think I'm going to have to drag this. Let's see. So I'm going to drag it on the other side until it matches up. Yeah, so I can leave that there. Okay, so I'm happy with the cleaning. Are there any questions on that, David?
I think we are good. It was Dana was saying, sorry Dana, that was a very freeing quote you shared on your Instagram stories. Save time through not zooming in super close if it's not necessary. Definitely. It's probably one of the biggest tips I could give anyone for their retouching process. And often we don't find these things out until years down the line, and then you're like, I have just sat at my computer for days, weeks, months extra than I needed to, because I assumed I should be zooming in to these, crazy proportions. So yeah, exactly.
So yes, so don't do it, people. Don't do it. So I just noticed that actually, David, it added on a new heel layer. So I must have created a new spot and it just did it automatically. Let me actually delete that. So is that everything? Did I actually create it on the... No, I don't think this has anything on it.
Oh, so, maybe not. Yeah. No, because the reason why, because as you created that layer, then Capture One would have assumed it was an adjustment layer. Right. So you can see the little slider icon next to it. Yes. So yeah, but if you had not done that, then so.
Got it.
But
so then
either way works.
We can move. Yeah, exactly. It would save me time if it's creating it itself. So that's great. So then I can just change this one. So let's have a look then at the color. So I'm going to call this color and go over to the color tool tabs. So for this shot, I love the color editor tool for trying to change, shift the colors. This color picker tool down here, I can just select this and choose the color that I want to change. So I have this green color washing over the whole image. So I'm just going to select that green color, and we can see this color now in this color wheel. So it's telling me this is the tone that I picked. And this around this small dot, it's telling me that this is the selection that I have, and this is the tones that it's including. So if I move this around, it's going to start including the oranges and yellows and reds. So you can control where exactly it's choosing this color from. The only thing I'll want to do is move the edges out. So this is just going to get all of those green tones, and I'm just going to move it outwards this way. So I'm just now selecting all of the green tones that I can see. And if we choose this checkbox here, view selected color range, if I choose that, then oh, so it's not showing me the gray. So right, okay, so it shows me the, that's right, David, it shows me the gray of the, not the color chosen. Is that right?
Yeah, it dips everything to monochrome, which is not part of that selection.
So because I only have green and gray, so I think it's probably showing me around the bottle lid and around here that that's not included in the selection, but I will use the view selected color range just to see, is it actually picking up all of the color that I want? So yeah, so it's got my green. Yes, so I think it's got everything in there, and I can start tweaking the color and see if it has picked up everything. So down in the sliders here, we have the hue slider, which is going to shift the hue. So I can either pull this all the way to the left, and no, hold on. This is what we got to do. We got to fill the mask.
Caught yourself there.
It always catches me out. Always catches me out. Yeah. So it's Friday night, everyone, and I've had a busy takeover. So excuse.
Yeah, if you haven't seen Zoe on our Instagram, she's been working hard all day, making 1 million Instagram stories. So you're let off.
Yeah, my brain is not catching up. So I'm going to make sure I can fill the mask. So now, now there is the mask, and I can also press the keyboard shortcut M, so I can see, okay, this is now what I'm selecting. So if we move this over to the left, we can see it's shifting them more towards the yellows, greens, and more to the cooler side on the right. So let's try and make this cooler. We're going to try and make it feel more like it was in water, I guess. And now I can keep adding to this selection. So if I choose with the color picker tool again, I can choose that color, and we can see here it's just adding this selection again down below the sliders here. And I can go back to my hue, and I can just keep pushing it as much as I want. And I mean, I can go wild. I can keep going. I can go, let's see how crazy can we go. So we can go really far with the color and create these bigger shifts really quickly and easily as well. And you can do this effect with other tools. You can use curves, and I mean, I love the curves tool, but it can be confusing for a lot of people who are starting out. So if you're not sure how to use things like curves, then color editor is so quick and easy. And with these sliders, you can just create these dramatic shifts relatively quickly as well. So I'm also going to just make sure that I'm adding on all of the selections as well. So I'm just expanding out my selection, although I think it's pretty much catching everything. So, so that's the color. I'm happy with that color, and I can now tweak the saturation if I want. So obviously we can go mad, we can go psychedelic crazy, but I want this to still feel, natural. So I'm going to keep this lower. I can also tweak the lightness. So if we pull this up, we can completely ruin this photo. But the idea is that you have so much control now. If I want to make this color feel more rich, which I probably want to do because I want this shot to feel more luxury, more high end. I want it to feel a bit moody. So I can darken this color and really kind of make these brighter areas pop out even more. So you've got a lot of flexibility with the color editor tool, which I love.
Has this ever saved you from a picky client who suddenly decided that they wanted a different color for something?
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, you can't predict what a client may or may not want. There can be a brief at the beginning, and then or things will happen where certain products won't come in, and the shot that I have, they'll say, well, we weren't able to shoot this one color because it didn't arrive on set on the day. So can you change this color to be a completely different color? And what I can do then is use the color editor tool to, if not get it perfect, at least I can make it quickly changes. So it's a lifesaver sometimes to be able to manipulate the colors really easily, for sure.
Excellent.
And with this layer now as well, I can lower the opacities. This is also a really beautiful color as well, so I can make it like the green is now coming through from the base, and or I can increase it to be this really, vibrant blue. So again, the layers are just so amazing for that flexibility, which I always want in my workflow. So are there any questions, David, about the color editor tool?
No, I think we're okay. Let me just check. They're a quiet bunch today. Yeah. They're absorbed.
It is Friday. It's Friday, so I don't blame them.
Awesome. So what's next?
So then, next I'm gonna look at what is not working in the shot. I can see here on the lid, it still has some of the green showing through. So, on this selection, it didn't quite pick up that green. And, I have a few ways that I could tackle it. I can keep experimenting with the color editor tool and try and pick this color up, or I can create a new layer and just correct that color, which I'll do, because if I add a new layer, then I can use a tool like the curves I know I just need to tweak that just slightly. So I want to do that, and I know that I can see this shadow, which it's really great, and the shadow to me is standing out as looking a bit fake. I want that to feel a little bit more like it's connected with the water in the background. So I want to make that more blue. I know that. So let's first start with the bottle lid. So I'm going to add a new layer, and I'm going to keep this empty because I know I want to brush in a mask over that bottle lid. So rename it, switch to the brush tool by pressing B, and let's just zoom in. I'm just gonna get my pan tool, just move it down, and I can either use the square brackets like I mentioned, or you can just right click. You can right click and you can either change your size, hardness, opacity, and flow. So for this, I want to keep it soft and not so hard, because I know I'm going to be using the curves, and when I start to make shifts with that tool, if there's a very hard edge, you're going to see it. So I need to make this as soft as possible. So I'm going to make the flow low, and I'm just going to make the opacity flow as well. I'm going to keep my hardness to 0, so the brush is very soft as well. And I've ticked my airbrush on, and I don't have my pen pressure on when I'm using this, because if I'm changing the pressure accidentally on my Wacom tablet, I never know really what I'm going to get with each brush stroke, and I actually want to train myself and my hand to understand what do I get with every brush stroke, and that's why I turn off pen pressure, because it gives me again more control. So I'm going to turn on the mask. So I'm going to press M, and you won't see anything because the mask right now is empty, and then I'm just going to start brushing over this, and if it's not perfect, then I can always go back in with my eraser tool. So I'm just going to get it smaller, keep tweaking the size of the brush just to make it fit. And it doesn't have to be perfect yet, because once I start adding in the color, I'll be able to see, does it need softening? Is it still too hard? So that will work for now. So then I'm going to zoom out a little bit more so I can see the whole color. I'm going to turn off the mask and go back to my exposure tab, and then down to the curves. So if I bring the tool out and just get this a bit bigger. So I know people often say how confusing the curves tool is, and there's definitely a learning curve with it. It's one of those tools that it takes practice and time to really master it, and there's no way of getting around that other than time, and you can set yourself little challenges. I remember when I was starting out to have a square color in Photoshop, I'd have one square, one color, and a square, another square would be white. And then my goal was to make that white square the colored square using curves. And I could, at the beginning, I could be sitting there for half an hour trying to do it, going, what, you know, what's happening, what's going on. But doing that process, you start to really understand what the colors are doing when I go into these separate channels, how I'm controlling the color, you know. And when I look at this now and I can see the green, I can decide, do I want to remove red? How am I going to get to blue, basically, is my question, is how do I make green get to blue? And at the beginning, you can just start playing with the, you know, the curves, pulling them around. But once you start to understand things like color theory, it gets easier, because then you can really, there's formulas for things. How do you get to certain color? There are formulas there. So use Post-its, have them on there, and so you understand, how do I get to green? You know, I'm, you know, going to be remove from green to blue. I'm going to be removing red and removing blue. So let me show you. I'll explain a little bit. If you don't know the curves tool, down in the bottom of the curves, we're targeting the darker areas, the shadows. And we can see in this histogram, it's showing us where our color tones are sitting in this image. So we have the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. And in the midtones, we can target those in the middle of the graph. So I'll go to the RGB, and if I just start playing with the curve so you can see, so I can, okay, so we can see here it starts to get brighter. So if I pull that up, I'm basically brightening my image. And if I pull it down, I'm darkening my image. So what I'm tending to do with the curves is a combination of color and luminosity, which is what RGB is really about, luminosity and the brightness of your image. So if I go into the reds and I start pulling up the midtones, I'm adding more red into the midtones of this image. Maybe it's would be easier actually. Let me add in a new filled layer so you can see it over the whole image, because maybe it's too small of an area. So here, if I lift up, we can see we're adding more red into the midtones of this shot. And if I pull it down, we're removing red. And you know what? Let me take off the color so you can see on the original photo. So if I lift up, I'm adding more red. I take it down, I'm removing red, which is actually going to be adding green. It's going to be showing the image as more green. So if I do it in the green channel, I'm going to add more green in the midtones. And if I remove green in my image, I'm actually adding red. So have a little Post-it note. You can just have a Post-it note where you say, you know, if I take away green, the image is going to get more magenta. In the blues, if I start taking more blue away, it's going to start adding yellow into the image. And you can just have these little Post-it notes to give you a guide. So shadows in the bottom, midtones in the middle, highlights at the very top end of this curve. So let's go back to the bottle lid and zoom in, turn on the color again so I can see, and I can see that this is, it's darker, it's kind of in the shadow area. It's not here, it's not in the highlights. And also I have the great kind of view on the curve. Wherever I move my cursor, there is that orange line following it. So here I can see the curve. This is where that tone is on my curve. So if I wanted to target this area, I'm going to be working with the curve here. If I go down into the darker areas of this image, then it's really at the bottom of this curve. So use this orange line as a guide to where is this actually showing me the tones are in my photo. So here, if I go over the area that I want to change, I can see it's in the darker area. So I know I'm going to have to be working in the darker tones of my image to change this color. So I'm going to take off this control point, and I can just drag that off. And I'm going to get the very darkest point, and I'm going to just start dragging it. So you can see there, I'm just removing the red and I'm adding in more blue. So if I keep going, you can kind of see it's counteracting, and it's actually adding in green, but because I have this color layer, it's going to look a little bit funky, but I can just now play with this curve until I match that blue. So it's kind of, it doesn't take much. I'm only going in at maybe a couple of millimeters there. So let's go to the green channel as well. So we can see that it's just adding more green. So I know that's not going to work. But hang on, if I start lifting up that curve, more blue is coming in. So we're nearly there. We're nearly there. And really, that's, if you don't understand the color theory yet, just move the curve a couple of millimeters and you'll start to see exactly what's happening, what's going on. So are there any questions with that, David? Because I know curves can be
I was just going to mention that you actually did a whole, excuse me, live with us all about curves.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to have a curves intensive, if you just go to our YouTube channel and search for Zoe, is probably the easiest way to find it. I think it was called curves for color grading, if I remember. Then there's a whole half an hour on curve stuff. So, but yeah, I found the post-it note method quite handy, just so you know what's doing what with the different channels. And and you can really see on this shot, it's made just a big difference in that spot as well.
Yeah, you don't need much. With the curves, you really don't need much. And I get why it can be confusing, because you're not only affecting color, you're affecting luminosity. And so if I am bringing down these points down, you can see how it's also darkening the image. So I'll just undo that. So you have to counteract some things you change on the color channels. You're changing the brightness values, and that means you're going to have to counteract it either with bringing up the curves in other color channels, or going into your RGB and finding where that spot is down here and lifting. So I'm just adding in more light into that area, just so it's not so dark down there.
Perfect.
So that corrects it enough. I can go in, and clean that mask further, but that will do me for this tutorial. So then the only other thing I want to really look at is this big gray shadow here. I just want to make that a bit more blue, because it just stands out too much and it looks a little bit fake. So let's add another layer, and I'm going to again use an empty layer and rename this shadow. And I'm going to get my brush tool, make it a lot bigger, and just brush over. So I'm going to press M to see that mask and just quickly go over the shadow area. And then round the edge of the bottle. So it's gray, so it's already starting off at a neutral point. So I kind of know I need to just go into my blue channel for this and add blue. So it's more simple. When you're correcting the color and you're trying to shift it from one to another, that's where it can feel a bit more complicated. But this should be a lot easier. So something like that. And then again, so in my blue channel, I'll just go in here, and I know I'm in the darker areas. I mean, here it's actually showing me the midtones more. Around here it's showing me the shadows. So I'll just start adding a point there, and I can now, you can see here, if I just start shifting this, I'm going to bring up the blues more, and I can see my mask isn't so great around here. So without the mask on, I can now decide, do I want to brush in this green, brush away this green, sorry. I'm going to bring down this blue, and I'm just going to play with the end points because I know it's in the darker tones. So I'm taking away more red, so I know that's going to add more green in. So because I want this to still be a shadow and dark, I need to be mindful that it's not going too bright, and it doesn't feel fake, I guess. So that's the only issue with here, where I'm lifting up these. I'm adding blue, but I'm also brightening it. So I need to counteract that in the other channels. So I can do that by pulling down the greens, and then I can go back into the blues. And there's a balancing act here, trying to match it. So there I'm adding more blue, but it's still too magenta. So I'm going to go back into the red, and I'm going to remove more red. And I think then what I'm going to have to do is put my mask back on, and the issue is around this edge where when I've gone over the shadow. So now what I can do is I can just remove the extra part around the edge of the shadow.
I think that's the hardest part of when you're playing with curves, is that you can't separate color and intensity. So there's always a little bit of back and forth to perfect it.
There is. And I mean, one other thing that you can do is, you know, if you're getting a bit confused about what is doing what, you can add, you know, one layer could be just color, and then another layer could be luminosity, and then, you know, you can try and separate that out in your just for your workflow. And what you can do is your luminosity, you can, I mean, this is in Photoshop, you can change your blending mode so that basically the curves no longer respect the color, they only respect the luminosity, so to speak. So
right.
But we don't have the blending modes in Capture One, so you have to be a bit more understanding of how both are connected with each other. But you know, you've got curves, or you've got the color editor tool. So if something is getting too complicated for you using curves, then try it with the color editor tool. Like here, around here, we could go back to the color editor, and if I go into with my color picker, I can go back into here and just find that tone and just see if I can target it with the color editor. And then we can start to shift it to blue there. So there's always lots of different ways to do one thing.
Yeah.
And I think if you can kind of understand what the different tools do, it means that, okay, if something's not working, then I'm gonna be able to shift this. But I have to remember here I'm using the whole thing. So I'm going to clear that mask, and I'm just going to brush it over. Oh, just brush over, sorry, the bits that I want. So, and then use that color picker tool. It's not really grabbing that color. So this is where I would have to accept that the curves is going to be the only way to do this.
Got it.
Because with the color picker, sometimes it's difficult when you have an extreme color change. With this big color shift,
yes,
it's changing the colors so much that it can be a struggle for the color editor to kind of pick out that tone that you want selected.
Yeah.
So we can see here, without this color on, it's taking the shadow to blue, but with the color on, I have to do some extra work on that shadow. So yeah, so basically we can keep going, and I can keep working on it, David. You know me, I'm a perfectionist, so I could keep going for hours and hours, but I don't want to bore everyone.
The question is, did you manage to match the one you did earlier? Because I never can.
I did. So I don't know. Yeah. So actually, if we go into the color correct, the gray shadow.
Yeah.
So here, if I turn off that.
Oh yeah.
So all I did here was, I think I just moved the shadows on the blue channel and basically took away that green. So I think the color correct. So let's start from a fresh. Hold on. So heal, then the color correct, yeah, and then the gray shadow. But let me just check. Yeah, it is brushed on there. Okay, yep. So maybe there are other channels are affected. Yes. So the red channel was more extreme. So I took the red a lot further over there, whereas on the other shot, I was too gentle. I was too too subtle. I didn't take anything on that. So, you know, you can see, and I remember I did the shot and I got it in about 20 seconds. And sometimes you just are not getting it,
Yeah.
and it helps having those post-its for sure. But yes, on this shot I did nail it on that shot. Yeah, so actually, yeah, we can see there's the color has been shifted more over into the turquoise, which I really like. And I think probably then the only other thing I would do on, you know, product photos is check the sharpness level. Do I want to, you know, increase the sharpness on the logo? Generally, I'm doing sharpness and it's selective sharpening.
Yes.
So, you know, because this water is more blurred and softer, I don't really want to add sharpness to that level. So I know that I would want to only add it to the logo, and I would, you know, create a new empty layer, brush over the area that I want to affect, and I'm just going to increase my opacity and flow for this.
Yeah, there'd be no benefit to sharpening the water at all, really, would there? As it's
no. If the water was completely
sharp, yeah,
exactly, then yes, I would do that. But yes, while it's in this more moving, you know, blurred effect, no, I will definitely just be looking at the logo. So I'm just going to go over that logo. And it's already pretty sharp, but let's just do it so you can see it. So, you know, then I'm just going to be increasing it just to make it really pop, because for product photos, that's the thing that you need to focus on. Often it's, especially for the client shoots, you know, the logo has to look the best it can be. So I'm always checking for things like, is it really as sharp, or, you know, does it need color correction? Maybe here on this, I can see there's a little bit of a blue shift there, and I just want to make sure that the logo is not affected too much. So I probably would just like lower the saturation of this one strip here, just so it's not catching my eye, because I like the general color, but I can just see that is affecting the logo a bit. So that's the only real things that I would be looking for on product photos regarding the sharpness, and doing that selective sharpening.
And also when you're shopping for products, is looking at 10 identical products in the store, trying to find the one with the straightest label, the cleanest label. Yeah.
God, absolutely. Yeah, I've had products come in, you know, from a client shoot where they did send me, like, say 3 of the same product just to make sure, but all 3 of them had it was a pipette inside of a bottle, and all of them were just wonky. So there was nothing I could physically do with the bottle. I couldn't do anything. And I knew that was a retouching job that, I would have to fix that in post. There was no way around it. But definitely try and give yourself an easier job when it comes to retouching. Just make sure, the details are clean, and save yourself time for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to do it.
You've got to do it, like, especially things like beer bottle labels and that kind of stuff. It's, you could spend 20 minutes in the aisle in the supermarket staring at labels, but it's worth it.
It is definitely, yes. Don't kill yourself in Photoshop.
As we're nearly running out of time, Dana, I'm just going to make sure I said that right. Yeah, Dana was asking when your course was going to be launched. So perhaps you can bring that up on screen.
Yeah.
Or do you want me to bring it up on screen? I've also got it as well, so we can do either.
Okay, yeah, you can do that, David.
Okay, let's make sure both of us are visible. Oh, let's find Zoe. Hang on, we can hear you, and we'll see you in a second. There we go. So for the URL, should be easy to remember. It's zoenoble.education.
Exactly. So you can sign up there. You can find out more about the course. It's coming out in April, so it's imminent. So sign up if you want to know more about how to light products, you know, with one light, because, you know, I know when I was first starting out, I had minimal equipment, and also I didn't want to overwhelm myself. And, you know, when we look at a lot of product photography, sometimes there can be, you know, 5, 10 lights. I mean, on some of the iPhone shots, there's 20 lights, and it can feel like you'll never be able to achieve things. And actually, you know, I've realized in the 10 years that I've been shooting that most of the photos that I love, the photos that my clients have loved, have been one light and understanding how to create a story with just one light. Creating an atmosphere and a mood with that light is often so much more important than having, huge studios, lots of equipment, big teams. All of the photos that I take in this course, I shot myself, no assistance. Using maybe a 3 meter by 1-2 meter space. So a lot is possible if you understand how to just use that one light. And I do use a strobe. I use a constant light. I explain how you can use sunlight as well, because if you have it, and there are limitations with using sunlight, but you can't control shadow length, you can't control direction, but you can shoot at certain times of the day. So anything is possible. And you can make beautiful images with whatever you have if you understand it. So if you want to know more, you can sign up at the website, and there'll be early bird pricing as well. So
nice.
Whoever signed up is going to get a cheeky little discount.
And you can sign up right away, for information on launch. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay, good
yes.
stuff.
So you can do that on the site. Yeah.
Yvonne was asking what type of constant lighting do you have?
So I have a LED light. It's which is great. I mean, I've used really big HMI lights, which are a lot of films use these huge HMI lights, and LEDs have just come on leaps and bounds. It's
revolutionized constant lighting, really, hasn't it? Yeah.
It really has, and that's it's been amazing, because now you can buy relatively cheap LED lights that are packing so much power, and with that power and the fact that the heat.
Yes.
The heat temperature, it's not scalding hot. One problem with the HMIs, they're so hot. Using them is always a pain. It's they're bulky, they're massive. So I use an LED light, and I love working with LED lights. Sometimes I'm like, should I just sell all the strobes and get some LED lights? Because sometimes they are. Seeing exactly what you get can be really helpful, but there are occasions where strobes can, they just have so much more power often than LEDs. So I think you choose the tool that best suits the job that you have, and whatever you have, you can absolutely create beautiful photos, whether it's a constant light or if it's an LED light or a strobe. I show you how to use both. So hopefully that gives the flexibility in your process as well. And if you don't have lights, you can rent them as well.
Exactly.
And when I was learning, I would just go to the camera store, rent a light for a weekend, use it in every direction possible, and really understand how to use it. But that took me years of practice and learning, and I kind of wanted to create a course where you didn't need to do that trial and error and
stuff.
The course kind of will show you from the fundamentals through to how you are going to create, campaign images that you could get clients with, minimal equipment. So that was my goal with the course, to create a course that I wish I'd had, David, when I was learning.
If only I had this. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Excellent. Well, ZoeNoble.education, so easy to remember. As I said, check out there's been a few lives with you now, Zoe. So the last one was all about curves. So if you just search for Zoe on our YouTube channel, then a bunch of stuff will come up. So that's the best way to do it. And don't forget to sign up for information on Zoe's course. So thanks again, Zoe, for joining us. Pleasure as always. If you came in late, anyone, then this recording was going straight to YouTube, so you can always rewind it and watch where you wish. So thanks again, Zoe. Oh, by the way, it's Thursday, not Friday. So you're hankering for the weekend already. Sorry, you've got another day. That
just shows you, that takeover has fried my brain, but in a good way.
In a good way, yeah. So also, if you haven't gone to our Instagram account, please do, Capture One. Pro and follow us there, and just go back and watch the stories that Zoe must have done. About how many stories? 20, 30 today?
I
Lost
don't know.
count.
I gave so many. You know, I give a little shoot
There was
with
a little
water.
shoot, exactly. So there's another shoot you can look at. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I always go too above and beyond, because you know, I love sharing the knowledge that I've acquired, and you know, hopefully inspiring people to know that they can achieve beautiful photos with, you know, minimal equipment. And yeah, and I just love answering questions. If I can help someone with it, then I'm there to help. So if people do have more questions, they can always message me as well.
Great. Alrighty. Thanks again, Zoe. And we shall talk to you soon. So take care and enjoy your weekend when it comes. Not yet tomorrow.
Oh, damn.
See you
Thanks,
later.
David.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.